Hello, I'm Melody Hom, and welcome to Yahoo Finance's Breakouts. This is a monthly live in-depth interview series that I do, and we're hosting it here at Subculture, which is a beautiful space in downtown Manhattan. I have the pleasure of introducing my next guest, Jennifer Maanavi, who is the co-founder and CEO of Physique57, which is a premier boutique studio that focuses on bar. And for those of you who don't even have a clue what bar is, you'll find out in just a moment. Let's welcome Jennifer to the stage.
Hi.
Welcome. Thank you so much for joining us today.
My pleasure.
Have a seat. Yes, Jennifer. So I'm very biased because I have taken Physique57 classes before. But for those of us in the audience, we have a very diverse group, and those of us watching online, can you give us a quick summary as to why Physique57 is interesting?
Physique57 is a full body exercise, and there's a couple of things that make it really different from other exercise workouts. For one, no two workouts are ever the same. So when you come to a Physique57 class, you're working every single muscle group. The teacher is really fun and makes the class really exciting. And you never actually repeat the same type of exercise more than once, so you never plateau. So I've been doing this now for about 18 years, and
Crazy.
I can't believe it. And really, no class has ever been the same. And every time I take class, I say, I can't believe how hard this is. So that's a good thing. So you can just keep doing this, and it can really become the one main form of exercise that you do.
And you say you still do it 3 to 4 times a week?
3 to 4 times a week. And something else that's really great about this form of exercise, and especially at Physique57, is it's really more about the person than the pose. So it's really almost like private training in a group setting. So the teachers are trained and really enthusiastic about working with the different clients on their alignment, what issues they have, prenatal, postnatal, knee issues, shoulder issues. So people really go for injury prevention as they're getting over injuries.
And it feels more customized than perhaps a group class at a gym.
Completely. So it's more about how you're going to do the exercise than the exercise itself.
You know, one thing I thought was really interesting is you've never actually taught a Physique57 class, which is really surprising. I don't know if I'm giving a secret away.
No, it's good.
But
it's easier to be the CEO than to teach a class, I think.
Well, that's what's fascinating to me, but I had to try it out for myself. I originally really wanted to take a class with you, but you told me that you do not teach classes at all. So instead, I took a class from Alicia Well, who is the executive director of global talent and training at Physique57, and she actually just marked her 11th year at the company, so I want to give you a look at what she showed me.
I was dancing with the Metropolitan Opera Ballet, and another teacher from Physique was dancing at the Met as well. And so she would come to ballet class every morning at 10 and be like, I'm already done with my work day, the other work day. And I was like, what are you doing? And it was so early in the boutique fitness craze that I just came and discovered Physique, and I took one class and I was like, oh my gosh, that was crazy hard even as a ballet dancer. And then I came back for my second class and I totally got hooked.
Break down the class for me. What exactly is so special about Physique57?
Yes, so we work through the entire body. We do a warm up, we do planks, push-ups, so a lot of core activation work. We use heavy weights here at Physique, which is unique for bar studios. So we really want to do things and get the results very quickly and get it done right. So we're super efficient, and then we do thigh, glute, and ab sets.
As you think about over the last 10 years, how your role has changed, even as you've expanded and really accrued more responsibility, what has been the biggest obstacle as you think back in growing pains?
Growing pains with the company. When I started at least, there were very few boutique fitness studios, and now there's so many, which has really been great because I really found that Jennifer and Tanya welcomed that. And the more people knew about these workouts, the better. I think we've always been very different. While we're bar-based, we do a lot of full body, really functional movements. So it's not just trying to spot and target tone. It's really this full body movement that's going to help you be healthy and strong. It's cardiovascular, it's dynamic, it's fun. We use loud music. Like, it's just gets you energized, really. And I think that's the best part about it.
And that was Alicia Weil, who is with Physique57, basically OG as OG can be within your company. Tell me more about what she was saying specifically about boutique fitness really being at peak right now. When you think about the saturated market to a certain degree, when you first launched in 2006, boutique fitness was not even a phrase.
No.
So how do you feel like you have been ahead of the curve, and now do you feel like you're behind, if at all?
So when we started, boutique fitness was not a term. I didn't even read about boutique fitness and about Physique being in boutique fitness until like 2012. I'm like, oh wow, my industry has a name. I didn't even know it. And so when we started, it was really just a bar-based exercise method on the 8th floor of an art gallery building. And
on 57th
on
Street.
57th and 5th, we brought it right into Midtown so that we could access all sorts of age groups and different sorts of populations. And it wasn't even so much called a bar class at the time. It was called an extension of what was the Lottie Berg method. And we were really ahead of the game, but it became a national phenomenon really early. Sarah Jessica Parker showed up within a couple of months. Kelly Ripa showed up within a couple of months. And I knew we were onto something when just 4 months into the business, we had a wait list, and then the wait list had a wait list. I said, oh, that's good. That's good news. And this is before Facebook. This is before social media. This is before iPhones. And the only way to really build a business was to call people or just hope that people would tell a good story about it so that other people would come. And so about 80% of our business was word of mouth.
Wow.
And then that's obviously changed a lot as new companies have come on the scene.
Yeah, and for anyone who does go to Physique, you see the hallways lined with those magazine covers and features with celebrities being interviewed about what their favorite workouts are. Do you feel like it was a blessing in disguise that you were pre-Facebook? You said that you were emerging as AOL was emerging, as people were trying to figure out what content even was and how to really utilize the web to tell your story.
I think it was a blessing. At the time, I made a real effort and decision to not put money into marketing and to really only put it into the product. So we paid teachers above average. We offered healthcare to teachers. This is early on when people weren't really doing this. So healthcare, 401k, vacation. We put a lot of money into the product and a lot of money into the people, and not so much into marketing, because you really didn't have to. There weren't that many platforms. There was really just email marketing, and we were in Vogue magazine, and we were lucky to get a lot of press. But that was really the only two things you could do, was email and hope you were in a magazine. And so because of that, we could spend all of our time developing this product. So then, when Facebook came on, and my assistant at the time would spend like 1 hour on Facebook a day. It's like, there's this thing called Facebook, can you figure it out? And so then we were able to enter the digital market, but already with a product and already with a brand.
With a story to tell already in place.
Yeah, already had a story, already had a following, already had a few locations. We had a lot going for us. So when we went online, actually, it was right before we launched DVDs. So we sold in all 50 states in 30 days, and I think that's because of Facebook. But we already had a 3-year history. I don't think we could have sold that many DVDs that quickly without it.
Right. You know, so for those of us watching at home or even in the audience, for people who have no interest in fitness whatsoever, I think your story is still very compelling because you were in a different job prior to stumbling upon becoming an entrepreneur. Can you tell me about your experience on Wall Street and what you were doing at Morgan Stanley and Deutsche Bank to kind of be the impetus for you to say, hey, maybe this is not what I want to be doing for my life?
Yes, sure. So I really always wanted to be in finance. And like the funny story in my family is I had a babysitter who said she was going to be an investment banker. And I said, when I was something like 9 or 10 years old, oh, that sounds good. And
I didn't look up to her, probably.
Exactly. I'm like, that sounds like a great job. And I didn't end up becoming an actual investment banker, but I did follow the path to finance. And growing up, my 2 favorite movies were Flashdance and Working Women. And I just put them together. I created Physique57. And what I liked about working in the financial arena was I just like business in general. I just find businesses fascinating. And more importantly, I really liked client service. So I was always client-facing. And I was working at a firm, I was maybe like 24, 25, and the partner of this investment management firm said to me, no matter where you end up, you should always work in client service. So whether it's finance or not, you just have that way about you. And I put that in my head, and I realized that, and it sounds like doing what I was doing in private banking is so different than finance, but it's really not. You're just trying to make someone's day better. You're trying to give them solutions. You're trying to make them happy that they purchase something from you. You're trying to create value. So I don't really look at it much differently. The big difference is running an entire operation and making sure that the clients are happy, which is a 20-step process. It's not just at the end of the day, but it really, to me, seems like a much more much more aligned with what I was doing than it might sound like.
Right. So come 2006, bring us back to when you first were introduced to the Lottie Burke method, and tell us more about that. That's a ballet-based class, and you were always interested in dance, and therefore you had stumbled upon that as your workout of choice. What happened for you to found Physique57 after experiencing that class?
It really was just like this epiphany. So I had danced all the time growing up, 30 hours a week when I was in high school, danced a bit in college, and danced much less right out of college, but was exercising here and there, but nothing. This is in the 90s, or there was gyms and there was yoga and not a lot in between. So I really didn't work out that much at all, and I went to business school full time. I went to the Columbia Executive Program, and I was working full time, and I was really, really busy, and I wasn't working out at all. And once school was over, I realized, I should probably start working out again. And a friend of mine was describing everything she did not like about bar classes, that you have to be flexible, and it's really hard, and you're sore, and it's really working every muscle group that you have. And
isn't that a good thing?
Exactly. So when she's telling me how bad it is, I signed up immediately. So I remember that was a Thursday night. We had gone out on a Thursday night, and by Saturday I was in the class. And within 10 minutes, I thought to myself, really, that this could be the exercise method that I do for the rest of my life. And I knew it right away. Did I know that I would start a business? Ultimately, no, but I knew at the time that I would do that forever. And I did that class 3 or 4 times a week for about 5 years, and then that studio that I went to announced that they were closing. And there's a whole bunch of reasons that it was closing, but not because of demand, just for some other like real estate elements. And
which tends to be the case in New York. Barbudo is closing,
exactly.
And people are still waiting for a reservation.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So people were like crying basically when they announced that and they didn't even really announce it. This was just a piece of paper up on the door, and pretty immediately I thought, I just need to keep this going. And I hadn't necessarily thought of myself as a full-fledged entrepreneur my whole life. I had started some clubs and cheerleading gangs here and there, but it took like no time for me to think that this was what I wanted to do. And my son was 1. He's in the audience. He was 1.
Shout out to Alec.
Shout out to Alec.
Yeah.
He was just 1, and I thought, why not start something new? And I just changed my mind, and I changed my trajectory, and I've never looked back. And I luckily found my co-founder, Tanya Becker, who is the Chief Creative Officer, and she had developed the product. So I came at this with the business background, and she came with the product background. So we were really a match made in heaven, and it's worked out perfectly.
Yeah, when you think about what I was most interested by and fascinated by was the fact that you did not take any outside funding, even in the early stages, and you still have not to this day. It's
right.
You and your husband's capital that you've put into this company. I'm sure there were acquisitive offers. I'm sure there was interest swarming from private equity. Mm-hmm. How have you navigated this journey over the last nearly 2 decades about remaining private, especially in this climate of when are you going public? What is your exit strategy? How are you going to scale faster?
We've had so many conversations about this, so many meetings about this, and offers and big decisions to make. And the fitness industry has gone through such an evolution. And I have met great people along the way. I just wasn't convinced that I was really finding the right partner for where I thought this business could go and what it meant for Tanya and I professionally and personally. And we were doing a good job doing this on our own. I mean, I look back and sometimes I think, oh, maybe that would have been a good decision, or maybe that would have been a good decision. But ultimately, I think what was really hard is that we have developed really 3 businesses within Physique57. So there's the corporate-owned studios in the US. There's the international aspect. We're in 5 countries, and that's been fascinating. There's the on-demand business, which is growing all the time. And now we're franchising in the US. And what I was finding was that from investors coming in, they wanted to just really scale one part of the business.
Right.
So the people who wanted to do the on-demand didn't really want to keep the studios. People who wanted studios didn't want to do on-demand. People really weren't interested in international, or they just wanted us to franchise. It was like we really just had to pick one thing and go. And that was probably would have been okay. I just felt like there was more avenues to explore. And I understand that not every private equity firm wants to just explore avenues with you all day. They really want you to pick a path and go for it. And so we've just turned them down at every turn. Maybe not forever. I don't think that. I mean, I'm sure one day we'll make a decision either way. But it's been really fascinating to be in this industry and to leverage all these different platforms like on demand and franchising and international. I mean, to be in 5 countries is really, really exciting.
Yeah, speak more about that. I think Saudi Arabia was the latest country that you went into, but you're in India, you're in the Philippines. It's not necessarily what you'd think of when you think of the next natural step. Maybe London would have been like an easy choice in terms of language barrier, in terms of cultural fit, in terms of exercise, already being interested in that community. Why did you choose those distinct countries, and how did you go about that in a very strategic but also, monetizable way?
Yes. So when we think about the other countries, it really has to be a perfect blend of a couple different things. So one is the partner, which is the most important, and then you have to think about the market, and then the growth strategy within that market. And what's also really important is how easy is it to set up a business in any one of those countries, because it's not the same. America, I mean, hands down, easiest place to set up a business. Overnight, we could have you and I could be partners by tomorrow if we wanted to, and we could call a landlord and probably have a studio or any sort of business open by October. I mean, that would be pretty easy for you and I to do. In America, that is not the case elsewhere. So the way that we've developed this strategy is, I mean, for one, in the Middle East, it makes a lot of sense because we are predominantly women. We're about 99% women. And in the Middle East, very often, men and women are exercising separately. So the business model isn't cut in half anywhere in the Middle East for us. So the immediate interest came out of the Middle East in Dubai. That was our first partner. A lot of crossover between really the psychographic and the demographic of Dubai and New York, and a lot of clients going back and forth. And she was a great partner. She is a great partner. So that was sort of an obvious first step to go international. And she was able to get real estate, even 2 locations, in a really quick amount of time. And then from there, Saudi Arabia, and then we're working on another country too to open up in the fall. So really have
What's the next step?
I can't say just yet, but
what continent?
It's very near Dubai. It's very close by. It's very close by. And then India was a similar situation, but that took 2 years to open because doing business there is so different. So that took forever. We're in the 4 seasons there. The Philippines was really quick, and that was a client from here who was very familiar with the method, and she wanted to bring it there. And Bangkok was similar. It was clients here who were moving back to Bangkok, and they were able to secure real estate. They have 3 locations there already, and there's a huge fitness market in Bangkok. So, and we were the first traditional bar studio to open there. So you really have to pick. It really has to be like a perfect blend of all of those things, as I was saying, in order for you to pick a market. And then there's other markets like London, which seem really easy, but it's actually quite saturated. It's hard to get real estate. There's some things there that are less, might sound obvious, but harder to actually get to execute on in that city.
And what is your thinking when you thought about U.S. expansion? You're in New York City, you're in the Hamptons, you're in L.A. But what about the rest of the country? Why not expand nationally before dipping your toe globally?
So you're not the first person to ask me that question.
I'm sure.
It's a very common question. So at the time, there were other bar studios that were expanding rapidly around America. So we would also have been like kind of an also-ran. And there were some studios that opened up a couple years after we opened that might already have like 300 or 400 locations. And they'd actually never operated or on a much smaller scale operated their own studios. So they are pretty much franchise only. And so they had to do, which I completely understand and respect, a method that was scalable and that you could train really quickly and just get these studios open. So while that model was going, it just didn't make sense for us. We had these very big studios in the city. Some of them are almost 5,000 square feet. We have, in some locations, 25 classes a day. So in the city here in New York, we have 430 classes a week. So we were very busy managing these very large studios. And we just almost didn't need to franchise. It just didn't really make sense for us to enter that market at the time. But what we did do was we really learned how to train teachers very well. And I would say that is like our secret sauce and our core competency is training. So Alicia, who we saw in the video, and her whole team have trained people from India, Thailand, Manila, all over the world with different levels of background. Some of them don't speak English even that well. So what we've done for the last 5 years is figured out how to have an excellent training program. So now we can match what we've developed as a very unique product and this amazing training program, put them together, and now we have a US franchise business and tons of demand. We just have this little button on our website, and people click on it all day, and we're just right now looking for the right partners. And so I feel like we'd waited a while, but now we have this amazing product, and we can train people much faster than we didn't know how to train people so quickly a couple of years ago. Or, I mean, maybe a couple of years ago, yes, but 10 years ago, not so much.
Yeah. Well, it's so interesting because you launched in 2006 before the financial crisis. And I'm curious, when you think about the talent pool that you were dealing with, were there any people, you know, a lot of these trainers, they went to college, they were pursuing their careers, perhaps were in finance like yourself. Did you see any influx of people who were perhaps laid off or who were trying to figure out something more meaningful? What do you think was interesting about that period of time as you were building your business?
That has changed so much. I mean, it is so funny. When we would have auditions for teachers, 0 people would show up. 0. No one. Not one person would show up. They didn't the fitness industry was either you taught like strength training or step classes at Equinox.
Yeah.
Or you were a yoga teacher. Both great, respectable jobs, but those were the only 2 jobs really that were out there. And we advertised all over the place, backstage, signs, just anything we could to get people to come to the auditions. And we ended up finding a lot of dancers, thank goodness. And then as we became more popular, now we have auditions all the time, and now it's a lot simpler. And now what I love is that being a fitness instructor is a really good job. And it really used to be I'm a waitress at night and I teach exercise during the day. And being an exercise instructor was a tough, tough job. And like I was saying earlier, they didn't have healthcare, they didn't have vacation. You had different schedules all the time. You maybe worked one week, not another week. And we really worked hard. I think the industry itself, us and our competitors, wanted to establish a profession called fitness instructor. And so now it is a much better job. They're on Instagram, as you know. I mean, they're everywhere. And I think now finding teachers is not hard. And
what is your acceptance rate?
Oh, like I think we take. Actually, we have this on one of the walls at Spring Street, which you saw.
Yeah.
I would say maybe 7% of the people who come in we hire, and not everyone even makes it through training. It's a 200-hour training program.
As competitive as the Ivy League, perhaps?
Yes, no, it is. I mean, you have to basically, and actually now it's even harder, and I'll explain why. So you have to look good doing the exercise. You have to sound good teaching it. You have to have a very natural smile and a lot of enthusiasm. And now and we have the on-demand program, and now that video is so popular, people really have to have stage presence too, because we do live classes. So we're showing 6 classes. We live stream 6 classes a week. So now you have to come in equipped with being able to, we're in 100 countries. So if you're teaching a class, you could have people in 100 countries watching you. So you not only have to be able to do that, but you have to also want to do that.
Right.
So now being a fitness instructor is like a full-on, very comprehensive job. And they're all amazing. We have great retention, which is, thank goodness, thanks to the culture and all the managers within the company. And it's a very professional job, and people sometimes work in 2 different studios, and you can create a career. And we've moved people to different countries. We sent 4 people to go to Dubai, and some of them came back. Some of them did not come back.
Yeah.
So now as we're expanding to different places, the teachers are really wanting to go.
How do you measure the social media presence, because to your point, a lot of SoulCycle instructors, a lot of Peloton instructors, they have developed such a strong brand that people don't even necessarily associate them with the company anymore. It's just like a standalone individual that you want to follow and you want to take every class for. Is that something that you feel like has gone too far, or do you think that it overall is a net positive for our fitness culture?
I'll go from the top down. I think one thing that's very upsetting to me really is how few people even work out. So really, I think the statistic is like 15% of people in America work out more than like twice a month. So it is dismal how many people actually work out. And the people that are working out more often, which is great, is the over 50 crowd going to the gym. So there are definitely some pockets of people that are working out more, but generally speaking, Americans really aren't working out that much. So with that said, the fact that you can go to Instagram and check out healthy food and look at instructors, I think that's great. Like, if we can be promoting kale and biceps, keep it going. Like, that's amazing. And if more people could work out, that would be the best. And I would say, when people ask me what's your biggest competitor, I say time. And people just aren't finding the time. And Netflix is probably my biggest competitor.
And Netflix CEO Reed Hastings says his biggest competitor is sleep. So it's like a vicious cycle.
Exactly, it's a vicious cycle. So, I mean, yes, there's exercise studios on every block, but we're really just vying for the same people. We would all be doing much better if just more people worked out consistently, not once in a while, but really consistently. So then to get down to the other question is, what do I think about famous fitness instructors, I guess is the question. I think that one thing to keep in mind in America is that there are more certifications for like dental hygienists and physician's assistants than there are for exercise. There's really no national standard. Now, I'm not suggesting we need to have this, but just consumers should know that anyone in this room can go on Instagram and just put in your bio that you're a fitness instructor.
Right.
There's no one's checking on you. So one thing that concerns me is, and not the ones you've mentioned. I mean, there's some, not with the bigger brands, but just in general, you could have someone on Instagram showing their 2-minute workout, or on YouTube, 5-minute workout, this and that. You have no idea who these people are, and the injury rates are actually pretty high. And if you talk to physical therapists, they're very often seeing people that are trying out these new trends, and it's like I tried out this XYZ class, and now my knee hurts, and now my shoulder hurts, and now this hurts and that hurts. So I think it's amazing that fitness is having its day. I just wish that there was a little bit more care and concern about what the actual methods are, and I just wish more people were working out. It would be so much better if I could ask everyone in this room one day, when was the last time you worked out? And if all of you said yesterday, then we're in a good situation. But I don't know any of you, but I don't know that that's what you're going to say.
We also have free classes for everyone.
So
there
now,
literally
next
is no
week,
excuse.
I want you to say it was yesterday.
Yeah, money cannot be the competitor. But on that point, it's interesting because we are living in this culture where, yes, fitness is important, but it's also self-love, treat yourself, it's okay, love your body for all that it is. And this is a very controversial conversation that is happening online and offline. But when you think about the culture that you're promoting at Physique57, do you feel like they have to be super skinny? They have to be fit to a certain body type? Because there are tons of people who are fit who may not look fit from the outside, right? Or you might not be able to judge their workout regimen. What do you think of that movement? And over the last couple of years, we have seen the pendulum sort of swing that way.
I think it's a great movement, and I will admit, when we first started in fitness, the language that we used was so different. It was like no more muffin tops, and about smaller thighs and thinner waists and all of these things. And at the time, that is what motivated people. So, and that's just what we said, that's what everybody said. And it really, really started to change a lot, which is great. And we actually sat down with the staff and said, we're not going to use that language anymore. It's not working. And it's almost, people were writing into us, literally writing in I just think what you're saying isn't working. And it's not motivating me. In fact, it's making me not want to come back. So we really had to listen to the consumer, and it was just a change in perspective, and we welcomed it, because it wasn't like we really loved saying that all the time anyway. And especially when we went global, it's completely different what you're going to say, how you're going to motivate people to work out in other countries. So I feel like we were ahead of the curve as far as traveling around the world. I think we've taught exercise in maybe 11 countries, and at like big conventions in Hong Kong and in London and everywhere, and they just don't respond the same way. And so we obviously learned a lot from our clients in America. And I think that it's very helpful that language has changed. I think it's wellness is a new word, by the way. That wasn't even a word back then. So now that fitness has fallen under this wellness theme is terrific. I still, though, think that exercise is healthy and it makes you feel better, but it is fun to treat yourself to all sorts of different desserts that are popular, and all these other things that fall under self-care and self-love. But at the same time, exercise really will make you a healthier person. So if you could fit in sleep, you can fit in exercise.
Some Netflix.
A little Netflix, a little meditation, and then there's all these yummy cupcake places. If you want to go to that, it's fine. But at the same time, you definitely want to make sure you're just feeling good about your, feeling healthy and feeling good.
I think what has made you very successful up until this point has been your focus. And to your point of not necessarily being distracted by perhaps, should we go into cycling now? Should we go into boxing and yoga? But at this point, are there ever days when you think to yourself, we should be diversifying? We can't just stick to this one-trick pony. Or do you believe that wholeheartedly every single day?
I would say we've tried. So we've been in business for 13 years, and we've been open-minded and very, very aware of the trends. I mean, we were talking about the competition all the time, and we're checking out other studios. We
Do you ever go incognito?
It's funny. A long time ago, you had to go incognito, and now you don't. So that's great. And I used to get phone calls from owners like, I heard you were in my studio. I never want you to come back. But now they don't do that anymore. Now I'll call ahead. Like if I go to a different city, I'll call ahead and let people know I'm coming. And now everyone's like, I just went to Boston and took class at a great studio there, and I hung out with the owner for about a half hour after. So now we're all friendly. But it was very competitive.
Of course.
Used to be. And now I don't think we have time to be competitive anymore. So now it's much better. So we have actually tried we've off and on tried different types of classes, and what is the most popular are our challenging bar classes. So we really stick to our knitting, and we've been approached about sharing space, like with the cycling studio here and there, or yoga studio here and there. And what's interesting is I think people, it's okay to be I guess the derogatory term would be one-trick pony, but we would really just think of it as having a very strong core focus, and that's really what we're known for, are these classes. But one thing that's interesting, and not to get too complicated, is online we actually don't use bars. So one thing that I am looking forward to figuring out is how we are a bar class online without bars, and as are our competitors. So we are all up there without bars saying, we're a bar class. And so it's really what we have, it's called interval overload. So that's the method behind our particular bar class. So there's many bar studios out there, so many, like new ones all the time. But our method actually is interval overload, which is pushing the muscle to exhaustion and then stretching it for relief. So we were actually doing interval training in 2006 before interval training even had a name. So that's what our method is, and we use a bar. So that's really what makes Physique different. So what we do is we use that interval overload methodology in our mat classes and in all of our classes.
That makes a lot of sense. I think one way you've been able to diversify your story is you have been an incubator of sorts. What I thought was really interesting is I've interviewed Bryn Putnam, the founder of Mirror, that $1,500 mirror where you can do all of the classes that are trendy in the comfort of your home. And even Carbon 38's co-founder and CEO, Katie Warner Johnson, they both were at Physique57 as instructors, and they then went on to found their own fitness companies. Why do you think that is? And are there other examples you can share of you being sort of this accelerator?
Sure. Well, as I was saying before, it was very hard to find fitness instructors for a long time. And then the industry became an industry, this boutique fitness industry. So we were attracting really smart, talented people like Katie and Bryn. And they were excellent instructors. And I think they got a taste of what could be in this industry and imagining what could happen. So for example, just, for Carbon 38, we were the first studio in New York City to ever carry Lululemon. So no one had heard at the time of Lululemon. So if you worked at Physique57, you got to see, and I'm not saying this was her inspiration, but you got to see how the industry changed. First there was Lululemon, and then there were about 20 brands.
Right.
And then you realized that people really want this athleisure, and athleisure, again, wasn't even a term, but then that became a term. So if you were just walking in and out of the doors of Physique57 in Manhattan, you had a window into what could this whole thing be. So there's athleisure over here, there's boutique fitness over here. Franchising became a big, all of a sudden fitness franchising was becoming very big. So I think for women who wanted to create businesses, if you were working there, you could figure out that there's a whole bunch of businesses that could come from something like this. So I must say, I don't know that it was Physique in and of itself that inspired them, but it was being in one of those first mover companies that introduced the world of opportunities that could come from it. And we've had other people go on to have amazing client service roles at other companies, and it's amazing to see where people have gone. It's amazing.
I also want to make note that we have a couple more minutes, but I want to open it up to Q&A in a few. So for those of you sitting in the audience, please start thinking of questions, and we'll set up a mic for you to start standing at. I always love to ask this question to all of our interviewees. What would you be doing if you weren't at Physique57?
It's a great question, and I ask myself that every so often. I really like the fact that people walk into Physique57, and when they leave, they feel better than when they walked in. So I just like improving the lives of our clients and making them feel loved and cared for and proud of themselves. And I've had people had me touch their bodies, like feel my arms, feel my biceps. Oh my God, I have felt so many bodies, and I just love.
Out of context, to not quote her.
Right? Yeah. But they just like feel my abs, and I just love that I could have been part of something that made a woman feel proud. And these testimonials we get, oh my gosh, like. We just, people with illnesses or life-changing situations, and how we've been able to transform their lives. And that's been amazing. So I would think that in my next act, if there is one, it would be just another way to do that. And I don't know if it would be through exercise, but I mean, exercise just happens to be what we do, but this is really the beginning of this business. And what I realized when I started exercising myself truly is just how much strength and stamina I had from exercise. And I used to work at Morgan Stanley, and just like walking down those halls with sore thighs and sore everything. Like, wow, I can't believe what I did last night. That was so hard. And how much power that gives you in other parts of your day. So this is really all about empowerment, and we happen to do it through exercise. So if I had another role, I would want to keep doing that, and it would just be a different avenue for spreading empowerment to women and men, potentially even.
Maybe baked goods. Maybe you'll overcorrect. We have some folks standing up now. We'll take some questions.
Hi, I'm Brooke. There's so many people out there who are influencers who want to create their own businesses. What would you say is your best advice to someone who's an up-and-coming entrepreneur? I'm sure you need some sort of tenacity, but what is that key thing that you need?
I would say the key thing, and what I spent a lot of time on before Physique57, is really thinking about the entire strategy and asking yourself, like one thing we have, one sort of trick we try to employ at Physique57 is asking why 5 times. So it's just asking yourself, like, why am I doing this? Why am I doing this? Why am I doing this? And how? And there's so many great business opportunities out there. And there's always this concept of funding, right? Obviously, anyone needs funding. But do you need funding like forever? Do you need funding just for a short period of time? And I've worked with so many entrepreneurs, and they have a great plan for about 24 months, but then they just don't know, like, well, then you're going to have to raise money again, or then you're going to have to do this, and then you're going to have to do that. So I would say thinking about not just what would this business look like now, but how could this business really grow and be sustainable? I think that's something to think about.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is LaCoy. I want to ask, speaking about your exercises, you spoke about how you have a range of different exercises where you don't do the same thing again. I work out, so yesterday was... When the muscles grow, they break apart and they come back again, and that's how you get stronger. So if you're not doing the same repetition to the muscle, how are your exercises making the people who work out stronger or fitter? Like, what's the efficiency?
So when I say no to classes are the same, the format is the same and the type of exercises are the same. We're just not doing them in the exact same sequence, and maybe we're changing up the timing. So instead of just saying, let's go, do this 8 times, maybe we're doing it 4 fast, 8 slow, 4 fast, 8 slow. Or we're just, maybe instead of doing push-ups one time, we're doing scorpion push-ups the next time. Or instead of a tricep push-up, we're doing some sort of other tricep exercise. So we're hitting the same muscles, and we're effectively working them in the same manner, but we're just not letting your body get used to it. So we'll always do quad exercises, but maybe we'll do it in parallel, and another time we're doing it with heels together, toes apart. Right. So we're just changing it up enough that your body's like, oh, this time you're doing it this way. And one thing that's really interesting is when we started, we actually didn't even know why it was working so much. And we teamed up with Adelphi University in their kinesiology department, and they did a study with us for 30 days. And people were losing inches and weight so fast. And this is like 2009 or 10. And we had to actually figure out scientifically why this method was working so well. And I think this concept of interval overload really works. So again, it's you're working, as you know, like your thighs, like you can't hardly...
You're shaking. I'd love to see you do this class. Please document this and submit it to me. I'll send you my email. Yeah, I want to see this.
Hi, I'm Ava. I had a question about, you mentioned that in New York City, I guess, it's only the same 15% of people who work out, and then the other 85% of people are not really working out very much. Yet there's a lot of new boutique fitness studios opening all the time.
Mm-hmm.
There's Solid Core that came from Washington D.C. I mean, there's just, and then with Bar, there's Bar Method. There's
Pure Bar.
There's
Bar 3.
so much. So if you guys are all chasing the same 15%. Do you think the market right now in New York City is saturated, or there's still an opportunity to convert any part of the 85% that's not exercising?
Yeah. So the 15% was more of a national number. I think in New York and probably Los Angeles or the coast in general, there's probably more people working out. So that was more the national average. But I do think there's room for any product, whether it's exercise or not, that actually works. I mean, there's beauty brands. I think there's so many beauty brands out there that are still coming to market and doing remarkably well, even in a 1-year period.
Right.
And so I think there's always room for a product that works. And what that means, though, is that for products that have for companies that have an untested product, or you haven't really convinced the general public that it's worth existing, those are the people that are in trouble. So I think there's always room for something that's fantastic. The question is there room for people who aren't? And so that's why running a business is in New York, especially, is so hard, because you really have to be aiming for perfection every single minute of the day.
Got it. Thank you.
Thank you. And we have the last 3 questions of the evening.
Hey there. My name is George. My question is, what are the most transferable and valuable skills that you brought with you from Morgan Stanley? and how the skill set that you developed in the professional services industry, how does that help you run and grow your company now?
Sure. So I think the transferable skills, and maybe they're not even so much skills, maybe they're just strengths. You know, it's hard to say. I mean, skills are like, I knew Excel. You know, that's probably helpful. That's always, and for anyone in this room, you should probably know Excel. But I think there's, and I went to business school. I mean, there's certainly things I learned, like how to do something, but there's so many things I didn't know. I mean, I was pretty young, and I was just an associate at Morgan Stanley. So even like running a meeting, quote unquote, I hadn't done before. So I think the transferable skills are probably less important than just what are your inherent strengths. So I went through a lot with my whole team at Physique57, a lot of learning and using these books like Strength Finders and Colby scores and things you can research on your own. And they tell you just naturally what you're good at. And I think leveraging those strengths was probably much better than saying, hey, everyone, I know Excel. And what's really important for anyone, and probably different depending on the type of job you have, but it's just your EQ. It's like, how are you treating people? And but what was really hard was when we first hired people, we didn't have a company name, and I didn't even have an address. And actually, talking about my son again, when we were hiring people, I kept bringing him to make the job offers so people would know that I was like a decent human being. Like, see, I have a child. How crazy could I really be? So I think that having people trust you is really important. So we started teaching in November, but didn't actually have an address or a real company name until February. But I already had about 6 employees. So it was like, just trust me, I'm going to find a place. And so I think having people, I think leadership skills is probably what anyone who wants to start a business, if you're going to start like reading or learning how to run a business, I think just general leadership skills are much more important than the other things that you could always hire for. And then I worked in really big banks, Deutsche Bank and Morgan Stanley, and some smaller companies, but what I learned a lot and I'm really happy about from those companies is learning, which might not sound so interesting, but it's critically important. It's just process orientation and execution. So just what's the process, and if it's not in writing, it doesn't exist. Like standard operating procedures, any idea, I always want it in writing, like how is this going to work? And big businesses have to operate that way. So I think between leadership skills, which you can develop anywhere, and then having a process orientation and the discipline to execute is really important. And I think learning how to work with your team to execute on your plan is really, really important. And so I would say blending those two and just becoming experts at execution, which no one's ever really going to be an expert. Because just when you think you're executing well, you change your business plan. You have to learn it all over again. But that's what I would say.
Thank you.
I think we have to wrap it up. I'm getting a lot of wrap signs from everywhere, but don't worry, hold on to your burning questions because you can ask Jennifer after this ends. That is the perk of coming live to Breakouts. Thank you so much for joining us today, Jennifer.
Thank you. Thanks.
That's awesome.
Oh,